Back to the phone line, Stephen next, a Canadian listener in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Hi, Stephen.
Hello, Hank.
Hi.
Thank you for all the great insights you share regarding the scriptures.
Thank you.
My question has to do with the persecutions that you mentioned at the top of the introductory commentary of this program. What is the right way for Christians to respond, especially with the type of killings that has been happening in Nigeria, which is known to be sponsored by certain Islamic movements from places like Iran, Egypt, and other places? What is the right way for Christians to respond in those attacks that lead to killings of entire family members?
Yeah, well, a couple of things, and I want to answer that question directly, but I think it's important to have some prologue to an answer, and that is, think about the early Christian church, which grew up in the epicenter of a Caesar cult. So in that particular culture, you had to say, Caesar is Lord. In some cases, you had to say, Caesar is Savior, because it's only through the Caesar cult that one ultimately can be saved. Christians were not willing to do that when they were baptized. The first thing they said was, Christ is Lord. And as a result of that, they were persecuted, they were killed, but yet they lived with eternity in mind. Now, was it wrong for them to use a defensive weapon to protect themselves? Was it wrong for them to protect the innocent against an aggressor, the greater good being to save a life as opposed to losing a life? So there are cases that I'm sure in the first century, like Rahab, there were misleading statements so as to save someone who was innocent and was serving with vigilance the cause of Christ. So I think it's important to recognize, on the one hand, that it's a maxim that if you're truly serving Christ, you will suffer persecution, and we are, in fact, called to recognize that as we are persecuted for Christ, we have eternity as our hope. We have eternity as our destiny, but that does not mean that we cannot be wise as serpents, gentle as doves. It doesn't mean that we can't even protect ourselves. We can protect ourselves against an evil aggressor. We did it not only as one nation against Hitler at one point, but by the same principle, we can do it as one individual against another.